that actually kind of brought tears to my eyes when he was with Frances Bean and holding her up to the mirror. And what was he saying?
He was making
squishy,
froggy sounds. Yeah. Yeah, and he would always make these little sounds. He could do all kinds of weird things with his voice, of course. And so he'd make these little sounds that would make Frances respond, and then, you know.
It was just adorable because you never really got to see that side of Kurt with his kid.
Yeah, that was kind of the point of it, was like, this is who I knew, you know?
Yeah.
And it was, you know, before I put anything of that private stuff into the film, I asked if it was okay, and Courtney said it's okay.
Cool.
You know, it was signed off on by everyone involved.
Yeah.
So,
and it was amazing. It only made him, it showed a side of him I'd never seen. A very personal, he was like a cool dad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He obviously loved that little girl.
Yeah.
And that was kind of neat to see. There was also footage that kind of warmed me up to Courtney a little bit.
Yeah.
With her playing songs for Frances on an acoustic guitar. You shot that too on tour?
Yeah. And then the stuff of when there's some footage of us rehearsing for our Unplugged.
Yeah.
And we're at SIR in New York, and Frances is sitting on Courtney's lap, and she's playing guitar, and Frances is like pawing at the neck of the guitar. And
so cute.
There's a lot more of that footage in the DVD extras, where Frances actually starts singing.
Oh, that's
good.
so
It's really good, yeah.
So out of that entire time, when you look back on that footage, first of all, at that time, nobody had cameras.
Yeah.
Like, how did you document that stuff?
Yeah, you know, I thought I wanted to really document it and save it, because, you know, like, Melissa would take photos, she was a photographer, and Eric would journal.
Yeah.
And I didn't do either of those things, so I thought, well, I'll just shoot film, because I knew at the state I was in then, I wasn't going to remember any of it.
Right.
So I just shot all, you know, footage of everything. And then, you know, eventually, like, when we went to, like, Lollapalooza or festivals, the camera would get passed around, and, you know, it would end up, you know...
Back with you with, like, amazing
Yeah,
footage.
like, what? You know,
Wake up the next
and who
day going,
shows up in it? You know, Flanagan.
Really?
Like, what?
What?
Flanagan, we're in Australia.
Flanagan's there.
There he is.
I love him. He's the greatest. Talk about a fall from grace and then a recovery, which is kind of cool. If you had to describe to people that didn't know Kurt and Courtney's relationship, how would you describe it? Him personally, and then their relationship together. Like the truth of it. I've heard people say, oh, you've heard all the rumors about Courtney trying to kill Kurt. You hear the rumors of they were going to get a divorce. Then I heard different stories too. I heard that, you know, they were just in a funk near the end, and that Kurt's addiction kind of spun out of control. Was everybody messed up at that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, you know, they fell in love, and they were both high, you know, and as was everyone, including myself.
Yeah.
But when they fell in love, that was a bond as well as their addiction. And, you know, it started to really, I felt it really started to take over Kurt, and it became so important, of course, as it does, you know. And I think Courtney was trying to pull him out of it, like, you know, you need to...
was it heroin with Kurt, or was
it
speed
was
too?
totally heroin.
Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that he felt... This is all, I guess, my kind of thoughts on it, okay? I felt that when the intervention happened and that whole thing, he felt really betrayed by Courtney.
Yeah.
I'm feeling that. Because they were in it together, them against the world.
Right.
And when she pulled out and said, you need to, and brought in everyone else.
Yeah. And he was messed up at the intervention, if I remember.
Yeah, I remember.
Didn't you go into the room to try to get Kurt to come down?
Me and
he was
Pat
pissed
Smear.
at everybody.
Yeah, me and Pat Smear.
Right.
And he was like, I'm not going down.
Right.
You know, and he was looking out the window. I was like, I know that feeling. You know, he's like, how can I scale out, you know? Everybody was out downstairs. You know, it was like, you know, people from the record company, you know, and it was like, really?
Rosemary Carroll, like his attorneys, everybody flew in. It was supposed to be a real hush-hush thing. Surprise Kurt.
Yeah. And I remember going there part of this. You know, we're driving here, and I remember in the car we were driving, it was like, I think I went with Dylan Carlson, and we were both driving there, and I was like, okay, the tags are expired on my license plate driving here, plus there's all kinds of drugs in the car. We're throwing syringes out the window, and we're like, because if we get pulled over, you know, it was like that kind of, like everybody had their own thing going, you know? But, so I felt that from that moment on, he was on the run. It was like, okay,
Did you feel like you betrayed him?
No. You know, I mean, because there's no, I really don't feel like there's any, you know, that's how he felt, is that betrayal, I'm sure, but, you know, it really is that we can't just sit by and let something like this happen, and without trying to do something, you know, and, he wasn't going to stop with all these people standing there telling him to, at all, you know, and until, you know, what does it take? And for me, it took homelessness, you know,
to get clean.
Yeah.
When you, how much longer after the intervention happened did Kurt go to rehab? Because it was kind of like a forced thing, right?
Yeah, he went, I think...
I went to the same rehab Kurt went to.
So did I.
The first time,
Yeah. It was, like, within days, like, a couple days, I guess, you know?
He went down.
Yeah, and then he ran out.
Yeah, and what's funny is, it was the first time I went to rehab.
Yeah.
And I went there, and the counselor said to me, because it was, you know, the big story about Kurt, and they all, it wasn't like it was a funny thing, but they were all like, you know, it's a very interesting thing here because there's a smoking area. You remember the smoking area just outside with like a 6-foot brick wall. And yet, if you want to walk out of the rehab, there's a door like another 20 feet down.
Yeah.
And Kurt, in his, like, you know, in his pajamas. Drooling, you know, with the meds they give you.
I know, that clonidine.
Yeah, what is it? Clonidine? Yeah.
Yeah, it lowers your blood pressure.
Chills you out.
Yeah.
You drool a lot.
Yes.
But he ended up, instead of just walking down to go out the door, he ended up, like, scaling a 6-foot, well, it was bigger than 6 foot. It was probably 7 foot, 8 foot. Anyway, little Kurt in his little pajamas, little robe.
Yeah.
Scaled the fence. When did you find out that Kurt had taken his own life?
I was in Portland, and I was trying to kick my own thing, you know. And
which also was heroin.
Yeah,
was it heroin at that point?
Yeah.
Because, okay.
I mean, I'm everything. Alcoholic, heroin addict,